Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. It's Ponomarev versus Putin. Um, I don't think Ilya is here yet. Good morning. Um, Been a heck of a week. I was just thinking about the fact that last Wednesday I was sitting in DC at the National Press Club with Ilya. We did the show from there, if you missed it, last Wednesday instead of Thursday because we were together. And man, has a lot changed since last Wednesday. It's pretty staggering. So we're going to talk about that, all that. As if you're a regular here, Ilya sometimes gets caught on another interview and comes in a few minutes late. So we'll just wait for him to show up. A couple things I want to tell you while we're waiting for him. um, One is that as of next week, the name of this, nothing's going to change except the name of the show. The name of the show is going to change. It's a pretty obvious name. We should have made the change earlier. It's just been a matter of bandwidth. But the name of the name of the show is going to change to Does Putin Have to Die with Ilya Ponomarev. So, same show. We're just doing this for a lot of reasons, other than including it just simplifies things, but also we're very focused on getting Ilya's book sold, having it do the job that it was written to do. And so getting the name of the show aligned with the name of the book, I think is an important step. So you'll see that change in the emails you get from BeamZ when you click on the show next week and all those kinds of things. And it matches the poster behind me. Yes, exactly. How come no one suggested this earlier? I've been meaning to do this for weeks, but the truth is getting the book done and ready for the publisher to send to the printer was an incredible amount of work. And it was all consuming for both. I think Ilya would agree for both of us. He in particular have many other things on his plate. A couple other things I want to mention. I talked about this for a little bit yesterday with Thomas Nadrowski. Uh, One is, at the end of every show, I talk about the button in the upper right that says pay host or has a dollar sign on it. Up until now, what we've been doing is using that money that you have been very generously and graciously sharing with us for Ilya's Bravery Foundation. We will come back to that. But for the next few weeks or a month, what we're going to do with any dollars we collect from the show is we're actually raising money to buy copies of the book to give to all 435 members of the United States Congress. So, I hope you can help. You can help right now if you want by hitting that button, but we'll talk about that every week. Once we get that mission completed, we'll go back to raising money for Ilya's Bravery Foundation. But that's something we're doing internally, and we thought it made sense to let you help us. So if you can, please do. And as I have said before, if you open the window, it looks like this, and you say, well, all I can do is $2. Well, $2 will help a lot because it's a $2 we don't have to raise somewhere else. It will cost about, I just got a price from the publisher. It will cost about $10,000 to thank you very much, C. Tolman. That's great. Thank you for doing that. It will cost about $10,000 to send those books to Congress. Um, and I said long ago, if you were here for the show, you know, members of our community here, the plan is to give his books both to members of the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives. So there's 435 members. My goal, frankly, is to give every member 10 copies of the book, which would be about $100,000, so that they can share them with their staffers and influential constituents and all that. But if we can get 10 grand to give each of them a copy of the book, that'll be a great start. So I tend to be ambitious, sometimes to my detriment, but what the heck? Got to have a goal. So thank you for that. Any help you can, and obviously, let me see. If I have it. You can get your friends and family to help with this too. We have not created a landing page yet, um, but you can go to the website for the book. It is here, doesputinhavtodie.com. And of course, you can tell people about it there as well. Let's see. Those people should be asked to review, comment on it, as there are probably too many who it would be wasted on though I do appreciate your good heart on this. Yeah, I mean, sometimes just physically a book has an impact on people. Even if they don't read it, they see that it's real and it's serious and that a lot of work went into it. So, I don't have the expectation that 435 members of Congress will read the book. Some will read sections of it. There's some sections that were literally designed to be able to say, for instance, the last chapter of the book is called, so the last third of the book is called the Ponomarev plan. It's Ilya's plan for how to get this done. And the last chapter is an FAQ. The last chapter of the FAQ was written specifically so you could just share that with, influential people, so that they could kind of not read the whole book, but just read those. I think it's 4 or 5 pages. It's 17 questions, and they would know everything they need to know, even if they're not able to read the rest of the book. In fact, I just sent it to someone who I think is going to be quite influential for us. I sent him the book, but I also said, if you can't read the whole book, just read this chapter. And it's 4 or 5 pages. I'm not going to say it's easy reading because it's serious stuff, but it's not hard to read 4 or 5 pages. Anyway, that's what we're doing with the money we raise from both Thomas's show and this show, for the next few weeks or month, or until, the physical hardcover comes out on November 15th, unless we're able to get the printer to move on faster than that. The ebook will come out on October 4th. Excuse me. And this is kind of a perfect segue for the next thing I want to tell you, which is really cool. I hope you think it's really cool. I'm going to put a link in here. I want you guys to tell me if this link works. Um, as you've heard Ilya and I talk about before, how much will it cost us? The hardcover, I think, is $32. And the ebook, I think, is $17 or $20, something like that. It's in line with what other books are costing. And I started to say early on when Ilya and I announced this book, we're going to figure out a way, and I don't know how we're going to do it yet, but we're going to figure it out. We're going to figure out a way to get y'all who've been part of the show and supporters, we're going to figure out a way to get you signed copies. So we'll still want you to buy them, obviously, because if you don't buy them, we have to buy them. And when we're trying to raise money, that doesn't really accomplish anything, right? But somehow we'll do a book swap or something so that everyone who wants one can get a copy signed by Ilya. If you want me to sign it, I'll do that too. But clearly he's the star of the show. The next thing I want to talk about while we're waiting for Ilya. Ilya, you're not here yet, are you? If you are, let me know in the chat. The ebook comes out on October 4th. We'd hoped the hardcover would come out that day too. We couldn't get it done. Believe me, we tried. So the ebook comes out on October 4th. Putin's 70th birthday is October 7th. And so that was by design our idea for why the 4th would be a great day for the book to be released. Books are released generally on a Tuesday. That's why it's not on Putin's actual birthday. But one of the things we're going to do, and I just put a link in there, someone click it and let me know if you open it up to a piece of artwork. We're going to do a birthday card campaign for Vladimir Putin. So if you click that, you'll see the card. It literally just went to the printer. We're going to send at least 5,000 of these cards to Vladimir Putin to wish him a happy birthday. But it's those prices. Some Prime members that may be, but I think they're actually going to raise the price because, darn it, Ilya and I wrote so much that the book is more pages than they contracted for, which means it costs more to print, which means they raise the price a little bit. Have you considered sharing this new with the university bookstores and other? Believe me, the publisher is doing all of those things. Thank you for bringing up those suggestions. I'm open to them all. And believe me, the publishers doing all that stuff. I mean, that's what publishers do. They know how to sell into universities. They know how to sell into, places you can sell books. So yeah, believe me, they're working on all those ideas. But if you have ideas you want to share them by all means, because there's maybe something we could do that they're not typically going to do. Like this postcard I'm going to tell you about. If you click that link, you'll see a postcard And the message of the postcard is happy 70th birthday, Vladimir Putin. Is this one going to be your last? Is this your last birthday? And then it's got to cover the book and some other messaging. So we're going to send him at least 5,000 of these birthday cards. Now, the problem is it's expensive to send. They're postcards, actually, but we're calling it a birthday card. But they are, standard size postcards. Now, the thing about this is it's very expensive to send a postcard or anything to Russia by mail, right? And you don't know how long is it going to take to get there. So I would have loved to have sent 5,000 cards to the Kremlin. That would have been awesome. And there's a reason why we're doing this besides just wishing him a happy birthday and asking him, is it going to be his last? I mean, you get the point there, right? Does Putin have to die? Is this going to be your last birthday? That's the point here. So we had to think, who could we send the postcard to here in the United States? And I'm sorry if that makes you feel left out in Canada and England, but I'm in the US, so it was kind of the obvious focus, right? So my idea was to send the postcard to the Russian embassy in Washington, D.C. 5,000 postcards. I thought, this is great. We'll get them mailed over a period of days. We'll alert the media. The news will know. Maybe they'll send a TV crew there to see the mail showing up with 5,000 postcards. It'll be embarrassing. It'll get the cover of the book on TV. It'll drive home the point that, that we want to make, which is, we think, and it says this in the book, it's really up to Putin whether he has to die or not. If he leaves, maybe he can live. But if he sticks around, that's probably not going to happen. Somebody, for a variety of reasons, and you can ask Ilya about this, there's a lot of people who I'm sure could be pushed to a point where, for their own self-preservation, they have to do, what Ilya said in our first show with him, the last shot will be fired in Moscow. So there's a lot of people that might now or in near future want to fire that shot or tie that knot in the rope, whatever. But, Putin leaves, maybe he can live because he certainly has enough money to buy all the security. That's the point here. We're not going to send the postcards to the embassy. Thomas Nadrowski, with whom I do the show, Tyranny Today, had a much better idea. And I hope this doesn't turn some of you off. There's a legitimate reason for what I'm about to say. But 5,000 or more postcards are going to go to Tucker Carlson at Fox News. Why Tucker Carlson? Because in the American media, he has been a tireless supporter of Vladimir Putin. Even just a few weeks ago, him saying on his show, you can see it. I should have got the clip. I didn't think of it. But you can go online and find it. It's actually even referenced in a story at the Washington Post. He went on and basically said just a few weeks ago, just before, the tide turned and the Ukrainians started taking the land back. He said, I don't know why President Biden is supporting them. I think I can almost quote him. He said, by no measurable means could you say that Ukraine is winning this war. Russia has lost nothing. Putin has lost nothing. And if you go back, you find that Tucker Carlson has actually been a huge supporter and advocate for Vladimir Putin before the invasion started and even up to pretty much current time. I don't know what he said in the last week, but pretty currently. So our thought is, and there's a little deviousness to this, we'll send at least 5,000 postcards to Tucker Carlson at Fox News. There's a funny little message on the back about how, we're sending this to you because you're Vladimir Putin's BFF, best friend forever. We figure he's probably going to crash at your house after he flees Russia. And we had to send him to you because we didn't think it was worth spending the postage to go to Russia. So it's kind of a cute thing. The point is, we hope 5,000 postcards either amuses him or angers him. Remember, the postcard, if you click the link, has the cover of the book on it. We hope he'll talk about it on his show. We also hope, there's a lot of media in this country that doesn't like Tucker Carlson. We hope they'll talk about it as well, whether he talks about it or not. So yes, it's a shameless publicity stunt, but in my opinion, was my idea, but in my opinion, it's a pretty damn good one. So that's what we're doing. The cards are at the printer. So this is how you can help. Getting postcards printed is not, while I'm talking, I'm gonna look and see if Ilya's messaged me because me obviously running. Uh, Printing postcards is not very expensive, but I'll tell you what is expensive: the postage. It's 44 cents a piece. So you do the math: 44 cents times 5,000. It's about $2,200 or something like that, right? Yeah, I think that's about right. So here's my idea. You tell me if you like it and if you want to be a part of it. I'm proposing that if you're interested, you have a Putin party at your house. And sometime over the next 2 weeks, once we get the cards, thank you, Melinda. I hope you were here to hear that the money is going towards buying books for the members of Congress for the next few weeks instead of, actually, I think you heard this yesterday and we're part of the show. But we're using the money from the show. Yes, great. So back to the postcards. We're going to have Putin parties. You say, I want to send 100 cards, or I'm going to have a party and invite five of my friends, and we're going to send 600 cards. Everybody shows up with a roll of 44-cent stamps. You put the stamps on the cards. They're already addressed to Tucker Carlson. You put the stamps on them. You send them out. You're done. You got to help. And frankly, you got to take a little bit of the financial burden off of us of buying those stamps. So if you're interested in doing that, I'm going to put my email address in the chat box. Although you do all have it, you get emails from me all the time. But email me if you want to help have stamps on eBay or less than half price. Holy smokes, Melinda! I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to check that out. Well, even at half price, they're expensive, but I'm going to check that out. So, Melinda, I actually looked somewhere for stamps. Maybe it was on eBay. And then I discovered that there's a lot of counterfeit stamps for sale. So I'm going to check that out, but I'm going to be careful. Anyway, if you would like to have a Putin party, if you want to send 100 cards and buy $44 worth of stamps, if you have a handful of friends who would like to do this, you can drink some wine. You can spill the wine on the cards if you want. I don't care. They're all going to Tucker Carlson. They just need to be stamped and dropped in the mail. If you want to have a Putin party, by all means, just let me know. We would love to send you a bundle of cards, have you stamp them, help us out, and let's all wish Vladimir Putin a happy birthday. Let's maybe embarrass him a little bit, and let's get some publicity for the book, get lots of people to read it. And really, one of the major goals of the book is to get people in our part of the world, in the West, thinking, this is possible, and maybe I can help. Well, how can you help? By helping the way you helped with Ukraine. You didn't know what to do to help Ukraine, but you did what you could. And if people all over the West help Russia the way they helped Ukraine, and I didn't know exactly what that help's going to look like either. I mean, I didn't, on January 1st, 2022, I didn't think I was going to go to Poland and Ukraine and write a book called Does Putin Have to Die? My life plan was, I got to tell you, a hell of a lot different than that. But it's what I realized I could do. And I know you're here because Melinda, I'm going to have a conversation with you um, offline about this because I want to hear more about this. Because obviously, if we can save money, that's a really good thing. Anyway, that's really the point. One of the major points of the book is Russia can be a democracy. They're going to have to do it on their own, but we can support them. And the more books that sell and the more publicity that is generated for the book, the more people are going to begin to think to themselves, yeah, this can be done and I can help. That's really a big part of what we're trying to do here. So enough about that for now. Ilya's still not here. He hasn't messaged me. We'll just carry on. I wish he was here because look, there's been a heck of a lot of news to talk about, but it also gave me a chance to kind of catch you up on the book and the postcards now. Has anyone clicked that link? Were you able to see the art for the postcard? I'd be curious to know if it'll. Um, that's great. Thank you. Um, Today is an interesting day, isn't it? We saw that in Russia. It's funny. Well, um, I'm not. I guess I can say this. You'll tell me you're not in the chat. A member of our show who's here today with us was also with me when I was with Ilya in DC. So I don't know if this person wants that revealed or not. If he does, he'll say so. But anyway, a member of the show and I were there. This member of the show was there because this member of the show is a photographer. So took some shots at the event and some shots of Ilya, like some profile photos. Anyway, the night before the press conference, we had this interesting conversation about, what happens if Putin, I guess the word would be invokes a mass mobilization, or as we now know he did in his speech, a partial mobilization. And, it's interesting. All of a sudden, the war got very real for a lot of Russians, right? Because it gets closer to, I may have to go, my brother may have to go, or my child may have to go. And suddenly it's not this theoretical war off somewhere. It's a real war that just got real close to my house. And so what did we see as one of the responses to Putin's speech? We saw the beginnings of protests. That was not unpredictable. I'm sure even Putin realized something was like that was going to happen. And I'm sure he had the police and security forces ready to deal with it. Uh, yeah, Simon, thank you for telling me that because I didn't even think to mention that. One of the things that's happened, if you haven't heard, is every airline ticket out of Russia is sold. Every airline ticket since Putin made his speech is sold. Every everyone who can get out, particularly I'm guessing young men, are getting out, probably with their families if they can afford to. There was a line I think I read yesterday, 35 miles long to get through the border to Finland. Finland just this morning, I think, has voted to close the border to Russia. It's the only border you can drive across now because the other countries that line Russia, other than Ukraine, that's a different story, obviously, have already closed their borders. So you can't drive out. If you don't have a ticket now, you can't fly out. And Putin knows about the tickets, right? So we might see a clamp down on the airports. He obviously, if he needs 300 soldiers, can't afford to have those soldiers leaving. So there's protests in the streets. What else happened yesterday? Sort of coincidentally, right? There was a young woman in Iran who was taken into uh, they have sort of a culture police there. So if you're a woman and you're walking on the streets and your headscarf is not completely covering your hair, we talked about this with Thomas a lot yesterday in Tyranny Today. There's literally culture police, men and women whose job is to stop you and enforce those kinds of, make you be, for instance, dressed appropriately, not just for women either. I mean, there's a dress code for men as well. So a woman was detained, 22-year-old woman. She was detained. She was with her family. She was detained. She was taken into custody and she died. There was a videotape which has been heavily edited that has been released, but it's been heavily edited. So what really happened? We don't know. She died. And over a period of nights, I think 6 nights or a week, there's been more and more forms of protest in Iran. Last night, it got really serious. Interesting, right? Protest in Russia, protest in Iran. Now, I'm sorry to be a little glib about this because I hope you know I take this all very seriously. But you know what today is, right? It's the first day of fall. And wouldn't it be great if it was the first day of the beginning of the fall of Iran, or at least the is it a dictatorship, autocratic? I'm not sure how to categorize it. It's not a democracy. If today was the first day of the fall of the current government of Iran and the beginning of democracy and freedom there, if today was really the first serious day of fall in Russia, and that autocratic government began to crumble, and it was the beginning of democracy there, that'd be a heck of a way to remember Yesterday was the International Day of Peace with the UN, September 21st, the end of summer and the beginning of fall. I think that would be a beautiful, beautiful thing. I mean, we are living, they say, may you live in interesting times. We are living in a couple of very interesting weeks that are part of very interesting times. So I just wanted to make that point. A couple of other things for us to talk about while we're here. And these are, I think, questions to ask yourself. For instance, there was a prisoner exchange. Shocking, shocking that, I was listening to, I was driving here an hour and a half ago and listening to the BBC, and they were talking about, what a bad deal this appeared to have been for Putin. I was really hoping to have Ilya comment on this, but the number of prisoners that Ukraine got back from, and I'm going to mispronounce the name, but uh, uh, from Mariupol. I'm not even going to Abastal. Uh, the number of prisoners they got from there, and the small number of prisoners that Russia got in return. One of them apparently is a very good friend of Putin's and very loyal to Putin. So I'm sure that's what was driving it. But why would Putin agree to this prisoner exchange the same day he made the speech about the partial mobilization, where he talked about nukes and other weapons, modern weapons, as he said, and said, I'm not bluffing? Why did this all happen on the same day? I think, be thinking about that today as you look at the news and over the next few days. It doesn't add up yet. It doesn't add up yet. Trisha, I want to get to what you just said because I've been thinking about that as well. Trisha says Ukrainian prisoners are usually in bad health. They're not. This is not a country club. I think we know that Russian prisoners are treated better. And I think that's, frankly, I think that's part of the Ukrainian psychological warfare. It's a big part of Ilya's book is, when Russians see how much better Ukrainians live, not just materially, not just stuff, but quality of life and living a life in a society that is free and that has respect for other people and human rights. I think that has a huge impact. And now these Russians go home to crappy Russia and think, I should have stayed in Ukraine. Was there any way I could stay in Ukraine? Are there soldiers in Ukraine now thinking, is there any way that I can stay in Ukraine? I think that's part of Ukraine's psychological warfare. I mean, I think it's also authentic and genuine. I don't think they're creating the illusion of a great way of life to hoodwink the Russians. I mean, not only do I not think that's happening, but I don't even think it would be possible. But I think one of the ways the Russians will be won over to overthrow Putin and Putinism and to fight for a democracy of their own is because they saw what democracy looks like in a free society, Ukraine. And then they have to go home and they're going to talk about it. That is frankly, a big part of the book as well. So we're getting close to the end of the show. I'm sorry Ilya wasn't able to make it. I hope I did an okay job in his place. Simon says, according to CNN, long lines forming at, I can't read it from here. Anyway, borders 6 kilometers long, one line stretching into the mountains. It's, there's a real irony. I'm going to wrap up with this. When Russia invaded Ukraine, there were lines of women and children to leave. Now I think what we're seeing in Russia is lines of men. Let's just leave it there until next week. I'm going to apologize for Ilya. I know if he could have been here, he would have. I was exchanging messages with him just an hour or so ago. So I'm surprised he didn't make it, but he obviously got caught up in something. I am going to remind you about the pay host button. Again, every dollar we collect for the next few weeks, next month or so, will go towards buying books for members of Congress. And believe me, every dollar we get helps. So if you look at this and say, all I can do is $2, please do $2. We will be grateful and we will put your money to good use. This window will pop up again when I end the show. And again, you have my email address, but I'll put it in there again. If you would like to have a little Putin party and send some postcards, that would be a huge help to us. And fun too, I hope. I mean, I think it's kind of cool to say, you know what, I just sent Putin a birthday card. And, it's kind of, when you read the card, you go, that's a little bit subversive. But I guess so is the title of a book, Does Putin Have to Die? Here's my email address. It's also in your inbox. I mean, when you get these emails from BeamZ, you get emails from me all the time. Feel free to write me and say, yeah, I want to help. I'll be grateful. I know Ilya will be grateful. And with that, let's wrap it up. Thank you for being here. And let me put a couple more links in here. I will see you next Wednesday with Thomas, Tyranny Today, next Wednesday at 11 a.m. And here, I'll put a link in here. I don't know if Anna is here, but I'm going to use her magic word. Uh, Click that link. You can sign up for the show yourself. It's also a web page you can share with your friends and family so they can join us as well. That would be great. The more, the merrier. The more people here, the more impact we can have. And while we're doing this, let me just put a link to next week's show with Ilya. And I encourage you to sign up for that as well. One of the reasons I like the idea of signing up for the shows is then you get reminders and you don't forget. But if you do forget, every show we're doing now is also archived on these pages. So you can also go there and see the previous shows. Thomas has been working to put keywords on each show so that if you're really interested in hearing about, one day we talked about Hungary, it's easy for you to find the show where we talked about Hungary. I don't know if we're going to do that with Ilya's show. I just don't know that we have the bandwidth, but I think it's a great idea. So sign up for yourself for next week, share those links with other people. And there's one other thing I was going to say. What was the other thing I was going to say? I can't remember now. Well, I guess we'll have to talk about it next week. Remember, next week, the show will be called Does Putin Have to Die? With Ilya Ponomarev. No longer Ponomarev versus Putin. And I hope you have a great week, a great weekend. I hope we continue to see the kind of news that we have been seeing, not only from Russia, but from Iran. I think when countries begin to turn the way these two have the potential to turn, um, that is a great day for all of us. So with that, I'm going to end the show. Thank you for being here.